Hello there, kia ora. At the post-cabinet press conference this week, the Prime Minister and Simeon Brown announced they wanted to see the country move forward with renewable energy sources to counter the price gouging energy supply companies are doing at times of low supply. After the PM tried to downplay comments from the United Nations Secretary General about the short-sightedness of restarting fossil fuel extraction by snapping at the media, he wasn't talking about us, la la la, I didn't hear a thing. To do this, they're urgently bringing back fossil fuels through oil and gas exploration, and keep promising that the fast track process that they've recently rejigged due to overwhelming public pressure is perfect for wind farms that are too scared to apply for consent. They even posted online about their determination to make us world leaders in renewable energy. And naturally, well, there's a lot of spin involved, and the lines between the claims and reality are vastly different. So let's start with the idea of bringing back oil and gas drilling. Both of these options are the opposite of environmentally friendly. Natural gas power plants are technically more efficient than coal plants, and they have less pollutant emissions, things like sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter that we get with coal. But the amount of methane it releases during the extraction, transportation, and distribution process is significant. And methane is a greenhouse gas which has a much higher global warming potential than CO2. In fact, methane is already the most common greenhouse gas emitted in the country. Oil is a highly pollutable fossil fuel which can't be processed here anyway. The oil produced in the past has had to be exported to be processed due to its viscosity, and no matter what Winnie and his merry band of cookers want to say, restarting the oil refinery won't fix that because it was never designed to process oil like that. It would require massive amounts of capital investment that this government simply doesn't want to do. The process of permitting, finding reserves, building infrastructure, starting production and processing, well, that takes between 8 and 16 years before you start to see any kind of financial results. And that depends on a huge range of factors. And that's only after they discover oil or gas deposits, which haven't occurred here since 2001. As a claim, this will help our energy resiliency. It simply wouldn't yield any results in less than a decade, maybe closer to two, and no amount of spin is going to fix that. And when it comes to renewable power options, there are actually a few out there, and each has benefits and downfalls. Labor had started working on the Lake Onslow Resilience Project, which was cancelled by the current coalition almost a year before they announced fossil fuels as their answer to energy issues. This project was called a battery, but was essentially a backup hydro dam that could be switched on at times of high consumption to keep prices down and make sure the supply was constant. The environmental impact of this was relatively low, but like all hydro dams, would impact the local ecosystem slightly. Teviot Valley locals were never impressed with the option, but Teviot Valley locals also voted this as their local board member, so maybe what was required was more open communication on the topic. However, this project would also not have been ready for almost a decade, possibly more, but it would have helped with future energy resilience far better than fossil fuels restarting in a much more consistent manner. Then there's claims that Labor had made it impossible for wind farms to get consent, and the new fast track bill's going to fix that. During COVID restrictions, there was a whole bunch of applications that came through that were then ratified by Labor afterwards in their fast tracking process, which has more protections for the environment and better consultation with iwi, the National's new version. 15 wind farms were given consents that would see at least 1,551 turbines put in place, which is triple the current amount, and the current amount makes up about 12% of our power. So we're looking at a fairly significant increase. The setup time for a wind farm is between 6 and 18 months before it can begin production, which is significantly less than fossil fuels or hydro. The problem here, though, is the consents themselves. You see, they may not have actually been to build wind farms, but more to stop competition from building wind farms. The short turnaround time on the build, the relatively small investment in the infrastructure itself, well, it all means that our power companies, which are posting record profits, should be well enough resourced to start those works and have chosen not to. It's hard to see how that's going to change under the new government process. The government does have a 51% shareholding in most of these companies, so it does have the levers to change this. Instead, they want to bring back fossil fuels. Finally, there's solar as an option. Solar power currently makes about 2 to 3% of our overall power generated in this country, But falling costs and infrastructure, though, is seeing this kind of pick up. Incentives in Australia have seen solar power make up to 10 to 15% of their overall supply, with a focus on standalone projects and residential housing application. Both the Greens and Labor had policies in place last election to see incentives here put in place. The downsides, though, are limited battery capacity for individual solar storage, but that battery capacity is increasing, and the limited number of sunshine hours we get. Sydney, for example, gets about 500 more sunshine hours a year than Auckland. But solar is cheap to install and fast to get up and running, and on a localized basis can be quite effective. The clear truth of the matter is that we need a range of responses to ensure energy resilience in the future. One option simply won't cut it. We can do something fast like solar, which will have a small impact on supply, or something really slow like a hydro dam, which means pressure on the system for a decade. We can force those with consents to prove that they're working towards using them, or incentivize the power companies to make sure that they pull through and actually set up wind farms. And these environmentally friendly options are either significantly cheaper or faster or more resilient in the long term than helping build energy resilience from oil, gas drilling, and whatever other fossil fuels they want to dig out of the ground.